Good morning, James Hancik. Welcome to the Preconstruction podcast.
Great. Thank you for having me. I'm happy
No,
to be here.
good man. I've been trying to get you for a while, so thanks for making the time. I really do appreciate it. James Hancik, for the guys and girls that don't know you, give us a quick overview of where you're working right now, where you're based, and your position.
Sure. I'm currently Vice President and Preconstruction Executive for Gilbane. I work in our Newark, New Jersey office, handling kind of the northern New Jersey market, as well as helping to support a little bit of our activities in New York City, supporting our teams there as well.
Brilliant, great, busy guy, I would imagine.
Yes, yeah, keep myself going, but I would prefer that. I prefer to be busy every day rather than trying to find something to do.
Absolutely. I don't think you'll ever have a problem trying to find something to do in your role. So cool. So let's jump back, James, a little bit. There's so much good stuff in your career towards the end of the career. So I don't want to get tied up in the beginning of the career, but it's also nice to give people an understanding of where you come from. I think that's one of the most interesting parts of this podcast is finding the different avenues that people go. So 1999. Civil engineering degree, you've just finished. What's the plan, or what does your career look like looking out of those young eyes?
Sure. So I kind of found myself in a fortunate position that I attended Lafayette College. They were undergoing a major capital campaign at the time that I was a student. There was about $250 million of construction on campus, and was able to secure an internship with Lend-Lease, who was managing the work on campus at the time, and really just fell in love with the construction industry. I grew up in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania, right next to the old Bethlehem steel plant. So I had much of my family had worked in Bethlehem Steel. So I'd always kind of been drawn to that, to the industry, but just having that introduction on campus with an internship kind of cemented the path that I was looking to go down in my career.
Love it. So you actually finished your study, stayed on campus, and built half the school. I love it. And then
Correct. Yeah.
Lend-Lease, you went in as PM. You stayed there for about 6.5 years. How important a learning curve was that to go into operations initially?
I think it was important for me for where I am at now. And I'll be honest with you, when I started my career there, I kind of envisioned myself with that being a long-term career path. I really, I like that tangible aspect of working on a construction site, seeing something come together, that idea of being able to drive by a project, years later and know that you had a role in building that project really meant a lot to me. But being able to get out on the job site, see how things came together, certainly very important to me and important to my development.
Brilliant. And then kind of towards 2006, MBA in finance. Give me an idea of the thinking behind that. Was that a conscious decision for your future career within pre-construction, or was it something that you just wanted to get a master's?
I think for me, it was something I had thought about during my undergraduate days. I had a mentor, a professor who had also had an MBA and had kind of talked about it. And for me, it wasn't so much about a specific career path. It was more about just understanding more of the business side of our work and kind of the long-term business planning aspects. The MBA is an interesting thing in our industry. I don't think you chase an MBA in this industry with the idea that it is a stepping stool or a quick step forward like it might be in a finance industry. You really have to have that interest that you want it for your own personal knowledge and your own personal growth. And it was something I did. I did evening classes. I was married at the time, but had not had any children at that point, which I know that certainly would have complicated things. So it fit in at the right time in my life, and I'm glad I have that experience, and just having some of that financial background to lean on at times as we make business decisions. I certainly do see the benefits of it.
Brilliant. And how important was it in relation to construction? Were you able to tailor the MBA with construction in mind, or was it a quite generic?
No, I think it probably tended to be more generic, in terms of my, my approach to the finance side of the business. When obviously when projects came along and I had some flexibility, I would tailor those more towards construction and real estate just to make it more a real world application for myself.
Brilliant. Good. And then obviously completed that. Then that was your first then transition from the ops side into the pre-con side. What was the thinking behind that, or was it a case of getting experience on the pre-con side, or did you just want to try it out? Because I mean, this is something that I promote to all my candidates, especially junior candidates. You've got to try things out just to get an idea. You'll never know if you like it or you take to it really well until you try it. What was the thinking behind your move?
Sure. So it was, I had originally interviewed at Hunter Roberts for an operations position. Very early in the start of the company. The company was only in business probably about 6 months at that point when I interviewed with them, and they came back and talked to me about this, an opportunity to work in the purchasing group and managing purchasing operations in New Jersey. I struggled with it for a while because I really, as I said, I saw myself in the field on the operations side of the business. And I think I just always had that mindset that when someone kind of puts a challenge out there and an opportunity, it's worth exploring. And I took a chance, and based on where things have gone since then, I couldn't be happier with that decision, and really do feel like I found a career calling on the pre-construction side of the business.
Brilliant. Are we going to see you go back to the dark side at this stage?
I think at some point here in my career, I would like to, help, operationally from more of an executive level role, being able to provide some oversight to our jobs and so forth. I do have that interest, and I think it's more about just challenging myself, and I like what I'm doing here. I just don't want to get complacent and doing the same thing over and over. So as long as I can, continue to do what I do, but create some other challenges, it's certainly something I'd be open to in the future.
Well, you're definitely, you're not afraid to challenge yourself, James. If I look at your project diversity, I mean, we're looking at life sciences, schools, fit outs, interiors, insurance renovation jobs, stadiums. I mean, is that something that you just thrive on, just different types of projects? Because if I see contractors right now, or even big contractors, they particularly do maybe 4 or 5 core markets, but yourself, you're able to just kind of take a project and run with it.
I think it just has a lot to do with our corporate approach here at Gilbane, is that we want to be active in many different markets, and really that helps insulate us. We're going through some challenging times right now. Some owners questioning, moving forward with projects due to COVID impacts and so forth, and just being able to be active in as many vertical markets as possible just keeps us going. There's always going to be those ups and downs in the market, but if you're playing in multiple markets, you give yourself the best chance to always stay ahead.
Absolutely. So talk to me now, what's the most challenging project that you've ever been on?
Challenging project. So there's a few there. I know, we mentioned the stadium work, the construction of Red Bull Arena in Harrison, New Jersey. Certainly, that was a challenge in my career. There's, large project, many complicating factors there, bringing a lot of parties together. So there was certainly a lot to learn there. I can, certainly look at my work at the construction of the New York Jets corporate offices and training facility. That job had a lot of challenges just because we really expedited the schedule midstream, and just trying to get all of our subcontractors to buy into to moving that job forward. So those are certainly challenges. I do look at locally, working in some of those different markets, and really challenging myself to kind of learn the ins and outs of different businesses I think that that's what keeps me going and keeps me challenged.
Good. Yeah, we talked offline, but I want to just touch on it again about New York's Red Bulls project, because as a European myself, coming to the US, construction's different. The way we do things, methodologies are completely different. So I can imagine the way, and they've built stadiums all over Europe. The Red Bulls, the franchise, huge. Building something like that, and by the way, it's an incredible stadium. I've had the luxury of going and watching a derby there quite a few times. New York FC fan, just in case anybody gets any ideas. But no, it's an incredibly 26,000 seater stadium. It's really compact. It ticks a lot of the boxes that the old stadiums don't have, both in Europe and the US. How difficult was it managing a client that didn't understand construction in the US, didn't understand the complexities between the architect, the owner, and the contractor? How did you manage that? I mean, that takes a lot of interpersonal skills.
It did, and and we really, we had a very strong team there that worked on that project, and I think that helped build that client relationship. But it's certainly, there were certainly challenges along the way, and just understanding how both of our companies operated. That understanding the kind of the lump sum trade subcontractor bid approach in the U.S. versus the quantity survey and unit pricing that the European team was used to. That took some time to work our way through. One of the challenges we always face here in the New Jersey and New York City market is just the expense of labor, and it's enough just having an owner come from the Midwest here in the U.S. to our region and kind of being blown away by the cost differences for labor, but to have a European firm come over and see that and really try to get them to understand that this is what things cost in New Jersey and New York. It was a challenge, but we worked our way through it, and as you said, just open communication lines. Really, there's no better way to do things than just kind of put it on paper and walk through it step by step.
Love it, yeah, and that kind of brings me to the next question, which is pre-construction technology. How pre-construction technology has evolved, how it's kind of improved and helped your role right now. One of the key things, and I'd be interested to hear specifically before we get into pre-con, how on that project, did you do a lot of modeling on that project? How did you communicate with the client on costs? Was it a clear upfront, here's what it's going to cost, or was it an evolution of varying costs throughout the project?
No, it was certainly, that one was certainly an evolution of costs. I mean, there was, initial iterations of estimates followed by, by trips to Austria to look at other stadiums they had built to kind of understand the level of finish they were looking for and so forth. And even at that, you would make those, I didn't make those trips personally, but for our team that did, even coming back and then trying to, relay, here's what we saw, here's the equivalent of that here in the U.S. and here's how it's priced in the U.S. So certainly a lot of back and forth went into that.
Yeah, good. And again, that takes a lot of time. James, I mean, there's some difference between that and somebody giving you 12,000 square foot of office fit outs to be able to give you a capex and go, away you go. There's a lot more autonomy and delivering delivering for a European client, a European stadium in the US, not having really done that before is a huge project. So kudos to you guys and the team. So let's go on to pre-construction technology. What are you guys using right now to mitigate risks, forecast costs, BIM, VDC, modeling? What's the go-to?
Sure. So right now we are in a transition period. We have adopted Beck's Destiny estimating software as our new platform for Gilbane. So we are in a transition period right now. All of our estimators have gone through an initial round of training. We're asking the teams right now to start, getting hands-on with that system, doing some sample estimates and so forth, and then We've got additional rounds of training planned, ready for a full rollout here, first quarter of 21. So it's a challenging time. Certainly, we're not accustomed to change, right? So it's
you got to move with the times.
Yes, you have to adapt. We have to, we have to embrace the change. Getting into it myself, I've seen some real positives there about how this is going to help our business, making sure that we as a company are aligned under one platform across our 50 plus offices across the country. Really allows us to operate as one business, one Gilbane, and that if we have a particular estimator skilled in a product type in New Jersey in my department, and we're chasing that kind of project in California, being able to leverage those resources and put the best Gilbane team in front of our clients is what we think we do well. And the fact that we're all going to be speaking that same language, using that same software system, which we had lost a little bit of in our growth. I think it's very important. But as I said, it is new, so it's we all have to stop and kind of let go of our old histories and our old tendencies, and be ready to take a step forward.
Absolutely, and I'm sure Stuart and the team at Backtech will do that. I think that's one of the things that one of the reasons they're doing so well is their engagement with their clients and being able to help and customize the platform. So shout out to the sponsor. But again, were you part of the feasibility group that had a look at a variety of different technologies? What else was out there? Was there any other ones that you liked?
So we did use Assemble a bit, and we're still still using that a bit here in our day-to-day operations from the ability to pull 3D takeoffs out of a model and so forth. So we have used that. I was not specifically in that feasibility team looking at the software. For me personally, I think we had some people in that group that kind of are more hands-on and are going to be the kind of the day-to-day owners of some of that software. Because for me, I think in my role, I do a fair amount of estimating, but I also have my role in leading the group here. So for me, it was important that the people that were going to be in the software day to day had a hands-on experience and had a chance to try that out themselves, so that I didn't want to be in a position where we were dictating a software system to people that they didn't have a role in trying out themselves.
Very good, very good leadership. Whenever you do things like that, I'm sure the team appreciated that as well. Yeah, very good. Okay, and then what are you expecting? You mentioned there Assemble and 3D modeling. Right now, when you get drawings from a client or a project, are you seeing people moving more and more? I mean, architects giving you models, or are you still getting PDFs, half-drawn PDFs?
Sure. So I think it's we are in most cases getting models these days, and we certainly will jump in and use a model wherever they're available. The point I'm always going to make to our teams, though, is that the model is only as developed as the stage of the design as we're at. So you can't really expect that model is going to be the end all and solve all of our problems and speed up the work. We still need our pre-construction staff to be very strong at kind of seeing what's not there yet and understanding, through a close relationships with our design teams, understanding, what work is still to be designed. What are these areas on our drawings where, the model doesn't have a lot of information yet? What's going there? How should we forecast that area? That to me is kind of the key role of an estimator in a design process. I don't want to simplify it too much, but taking a set of drawings and doing takeoffs and applying unit cost to it is, there's some pretty specific tasks that you follow and you arrive at a number. But being able to kind of see forward and see what's not there yet, that's I'd like to think that's where our estimating teams differentiate themselves and and kind of really earn the respect of our clients.
Brilliant. Yeah. So each individual estimator, whatever their strength or whatever their division or code, being able to see the big picture and how that impacts or their decisions impact the project overall.
Correct. Absolutely. One of the other key things we talk about with our pre-construction efforts is, I hate to always get too caught up in the cost side. Obviously, cost certainty and cost control in a pre-construction effort is a key factor. But as I mentioned earlier when we were talking about Red Bull Arena and labor costs and so forth, we really stress that using this pre-construction effort to figure out where the roadblocks are going to be in construction. What are those pinch points that could slow down a project, and how do we solve those problems now? To me, that's vitally important to delivering a high level of pre-construction service to our clients, is eliminating problems up front so that when the job starts, everything runs smoothly. With the high cost of labor in the New Jersey and New York City markets, we don't want to have trade contractors standing around waiting for answers. We want to solve those problems up front so that when our operations team hit the ground in the field, that they can be as productive as possible.
Brilliant. And again, that can only happen if the pre-con, if all the work is done within pre-con and the pre-con work is airtight. And that kind of comes back to what we talked before, James, of the amount of people that are coming into the industry that are going to operations is great, but there's a disproportionate amount of people going to operations rather than going straight into pre-con. And we might be losing people out of the industry just because they're not given that opportunity right off the bat. I mean, nobody goes to high school and turns around to the teacher and goes, I want to become an estimator.
Yes.
Yeah,
I actually, so I attended a virtual college career fair about 2 weeks ago. And, a lot of engineering students, and I usually ask that question, when they come to the Gilbane table and they express an interest in construction, are you thinking about, operations and being out on the job site running a job, or do you see yourself in an office role, estimating, purchasing? And, 99 out of 100 are going to be, I want to go out and build a job.
Yeah.
To the point that, this last career fair that I was at, I actually had one student come up and say, I want to work in estimating. I want to work in pre-construction. And,
wow.
It's like I don't see these much. So those people stand out to me.
When can you start? But that's a major problem. I mean, creating awareness, that's the podcast is that's the core focus of us, creating awareness of pre-construction and estimating. And James, you know it as well. I mean, I would say, I remember speaking to Steve Del Orto over in California, who was with Clark for 35 years. He says it's probably between 70 and 75% in operations right now of a general contractor, but he sees that completely shifting. He says all the decisions are going to be made in the front end and the design, and there's going to be more people making those decisions, making sure that literally when it gets to the operations side, it's just a matter of putting it together and costs. So getting more people into pre-construction estimating, that's what it's all about. And letting people...
Absolutely.
And between VDC, Assemble, there's so many other jobs that's, I mean, we interviewed Noni Pittinger, who is a robotics. She's a digital fabricator who works in robotics. So digital fabricating something on a computer and then send that information to a robot to build it. I mean, that's the kind of level and jobs that are out there. It's just letting people know about them. Yeah, so James, I mean, the Preconstruction Technology, and we're talking about Beck and the Destiny Estimator platform. One thing that's huge at the minute, and it's really important that we look at it, and even historical, is big data. Historical data to go forward, to mitigate risk, to forecast costs. What's your view on it?
I think the data is critically important to our industry. It's it's rare that you put together an estimate and give it to a client and they tell you how far below budget you are. Usually, usually that first round of estimate is always has a couple bumps in the road, and because it's a typical process. A client is going to put down everything that they could possibly want on a job, hoping that they can afford it. And then becomes the process. That's when we go to work then and figure out, okay, well, maybe we can't fit this in the budget, but here's another way we can do it. And here's how we we can deliver that service. But that initial discussion with a client about, we do, you need to be able to validate, why your estimate is correct. So having that big data behind you is very important. My teams, I always talk about, we do an independent estimate. I don't, that first pass through, I don't like to know where a client's estimate is. I don't want to be persuaded by a number. I want to give you a real picture of what I think, what I think this project looks like. Mm-hmm. My next step then is, we always talk about benchmark against data. So it's, having that luxury of having, Gilbane offices across the country, that if I didn't build this type of facility here in New Jersey or New York, there's a good chance one of my other offices have done that. And having access to that data, understanding cost on that job, obviously that's going to, involve some escalation and relocation factors, but being able to put, other similar projects in front of our clients and say, here's 4 jobs similar to yours. Here's what it costs. Here's where we are at, and, help substantiate that effort. That data also sometimes, opens my eyes, not just the client's eyes, where, okay, you know what, these 4 jobs tell me it shouldn't be that expensive. So I need to do a deeper dive here before I go back to my client and say, why am I, $50 a square foot more expensive than these other 4 projects? And sometimes you find that reason. There's some site condition you're dealing with, whatever the case may be, but sometimes you don't. And it does, it makes you reevaluate and go, okay, maybe maybe my numbers are a little off here, and I need to sharpen the pencil a little bit. So that data is always critically important to me, but I think, the important thing there is to kind of make sure you get that fresh look at your job before you start trying to be influenced by any of that data.
Brilliant. Yeah. And again, using the data and the technology as a kind of a companion to come to the right decision, because a lot of people think that the technology is going to take over. It's not. It's going to be a vital player in the team that is pre-construction. And again, the amount of projects that are coming up, I mean, the amount of buildings that we have to build in the US over the next 2 decades is humongous. So unless we get technology, the people aren't there to do it. So unless we get technology to help us expedite it and do it better, do it bigger, do it safer, then it's impossible. And is there any particular tool that you use when it comes to big data? Any kind of collaborative tool or tools to extract from previous projects?
So we do have an internal database at Gilbane that we rely heavily upon. It has access to all of my trade specific data from all of our projects across the country. So that's kind of an in-house resource that we rely upon. But certainly, we do kind of maintain some internal databases as well, just on, focused on specific market sectors. There's a couple of market sectors out there: corporate interiors, high-rise residential, that you can get some quick numbers together very quickly for a client, on a back of napkin sketch type, just from having those databases in-house.
Brilliant. Yeah. Valuable resource. And then kind of that brings me on to my next question about the evolution of an estimator's career, or what we expect from an estimator. The old tradition of this introvert sitting in the corner crunching numbers, it's not happening anymore. It's evolving into a real complex value add engineering design role. And I think that's where traditionally they were called estimators. Now they're called pre-construction executives, managers, engineers. How has it evolved? I mean, you would have seen it evolve throughout your career. Where do you think it is now, and where do you think it's going to go in the future?
Certainly, no. So I definitely agree that has evolved quite a bit over my career, and I think, for me personally, I think that's what makes the position more appealing than maybe what my impression was of it at coming out of college and starting a career. That I'm not sitting at a desk doing takeoffs all day and applying unit costs. It's really being out in front of our clients, understanding what their goals are for a project, and then helping them find creative solutions to get there. Sometimes that's, getting creative with material and equipment selections. Sometimes that's finding a quicker way to build something, because we have a client that, has a very aggressive schedule, and they want to hire a contractor that's going to find a solution for them. So for me, it's critically important that we our pre-construction team is what I'll call project managers during a design phase. There's so many moving parts and pieces during that design phase that our clients want and they expect a level of service that is beyond someone sitting at a desk and doing takeoffs and putting costs together. They want someone that's looking out for their best interest, that's helping maximize their benefits during that pre-construction phase, maximizing value for their investment. Our clients are making large investments in these projects. They want to know that their money's well spent and that we've explored all the options that are available to them. We certainly we work closely with our design partners on projects, but that doesn't mean we can't challenge some ideas. And if we see a better way to do something, it's having that discussion with the architect and knowing that we're working on the same team to deliver a first-class building for our clients. To me, that's what's most important.
Absolutely. Communication, it's key. And then to be able to kind of, and I know it's a difficult one, but someone at your level, VP of pre-construction at Gilbane, building good estimating teams, good pre-construction teams, is there anything in particular that you look for in an estimator or a pre-construction professional when you're hiring?
Sure. So I do think communication is vitally important. Finding someone that that is confident speaking about their own abilities, about what they can bring to the table. You need that. You need someone that is going to be able to communicate with architects, communicate with owners. So that is vitally important. That there's that level of confidence that goes with it. And I think being able to show that you work well in a team setting. Now, it goes across the board in our industry. Our project teams running job sites, you want that to be a cohesive team. But I think it's critically important in pre-construction as well that you have a good cohesive team. You want people that are going to look out for each other. This is, we are in a very deliverable-driven business, in that our work gets busiest when our estimates are due, or our proposals are due, and so forth. So you want those people that are willing to kind of step up and help each other out, as we're getting into those very, really difficult, long days of getting an estimate finished. So, it's, having those, and I can't speak highly enough, with my specific team in New Jersey, that the team just looks out for each other. No one leaves, at the end of the day without making sure that, their coworkers, are in good shape, that, you don't want anybody sitting there working late nights by themselves. You want people that are going to step in and help each other through those high points in the work volume. So to me, I think, as I grow a team and add to a team, I worry as much about that, how that new hire affects the cohesive structure of the group as I do about their technical abilities. Because having any kind of disruption in the cohesion of that group is going to affect my business far more than someone that might not be, the strongest technical estimator.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about having people that understand the peaks and troughs of pre-construction and estimating. And when things, and let's be honest, estimating is not a thing that happens and it's just fine all the time. There's going to be times where you're going to be down, you're not going to get bids, you're going to make mistakes. It's about how you react to that. And I find that the best estimators or pre-construction professionals are able to take hits and be really gritty in their career. And that's, to me, when I'm speaking to VPs and directors and people that have got to executive level, they all have that in common. They're able to communicate the vision, but also to be able to take knocks and be able to manage their team, to be able to say, listen, don't worry about that. Let's learn from that and move on, and not crumble and affect the rest of the group. And within your
I can say one thing that always stands out to me, if I'm looking at resumes for, college graduates or young professionals a few years in the business, someone that played a college sport for some reason, that jumps out to me on a resume, just because I think you do go through some bumps in the road there. you're part of a team setting. You kind of, you learn to kind of find your way and earn your role on a team and so forth. So that to me, I think, it does show some valuable experience. And, not saying it, it's not an end all for me from a hiring perspective, but it certainly does, it does stand out. Those resumes do catch my attention.
James, you're 100%. I'm the same. We run obviously niche specialist staffing partners. We only do pre-construction and estimating throughout the US. But my background is sport, obviously 12 years playing soccer in Europe. My wife has got a background that's similar, playing soccer at international level. So it really does help when you've got that experience to understand the importance of team over own individual performance. And when we're recruiting and building the team, it's something that jumps out on us. I will always give opportunities to everyone, but I find the high performers generally come from that sport. And you know what it is? It's the competitiveness of doing well, whether it be individually or as a company or as a team. Because at the end of the day, we're the same. We're just trying to satisfy the client and get the best person for the client. So very good. And I'm, as I mentioned to you before, I'm always making comparisons and comparing things to sport and to team. It's just easy for people to understand it as well. But that's real vital information. And James, listen, throughout this podcast, I've found it fascinating and refreshing how such a young man has got to such a high level within such a large company. So all credit to you. And I know that the people listening, the junior estimators, even the high school people that are listening to this, that pre-construction and estimating, there is a career in it, and there's so much to be had, and there's so many good people in the industry. That's what I've got, the network of pre-construction and estimating and individuals throughout the US. They want to help each other, but they just haven't had a platform. So hopefully this gives them that platform and brings the next generation in as well. So I want to thank you for your time.
Sure. No, I appreciate the time as well. I love the concept here. I love, as I said, that experience I have at those college career fairs where there's just not a lot of interest in the pre-construction career. Kind of, it makes me nervous, right? Because, certainly we know manpower is a challenge in our business moving forward, at all levels, not just pre-construction. So, anything we can do to expose a younger generation to, potential careers here, I think is a great opportunity, and, certainly support that effort 100%.
Good, man. And funny you said that as well, because we did have a couple of Nick Sensky, who's a assistant professor. He was in North Carolina. I think he went up to Ohio, and we had him on about 3 or 4 weeks ago, and getting his understanding of how he's teaching pre-construction and estimating construction and architecture. I think we're starting to get there, whether it be in the schools or at school, the fairs, whatever it is. We've got to get the message out there, that pre-construction and estimating, BIM, BDC, technology within construction, so many careers, and we don't lose, especially those IT people. Everybody in IT wants to work for Facebook and Google and Amazon, but you can actually come and work for Gilbane and all the other fantastic E&R top 100s that's really innovating an industry that hasn't adapted change. So I think you can make more of a difference in that. So if we can take some of that IT talent and bring them into estimating pre-construction and the front end, I think it'll be good for all of us.
Sure, no, absolutely. And I think just to touch briefly on the point you made earlier about the career advancement and that sort of stuff. I think our industry is changing, and I think that's a great thing. I think, when I started in this business, I think, you always had that idea that a project manager was somebody with 25 to 30 years experience and so forth. And I think a lot of those walls have come down, and it's, there's a lot of change, there's a lot of innovation. And I think, I certainly see it here at Gilbane. I think, the career opportunities are there for anyone that wants them. So I value working here at a company that gives employees that initiative to go out and do what they want to do and kind of, define their career paths. But, I certainly would encourage, any of the young professionals out there, you want to be in an organization that gives you that push to go out and do your best. And, I hope there's other companies out there that people feel the same way. I'm sure there are, but that's my, the best thing I can suggest anyone is you find that right career spot where, where you can be challenged, where you can go out and, chase down, the opportunities that you want. That's where you want to be.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with you. If you're in a company that does that and very early on gives you a taste for all the different verticals within the company, you're going to find something that you've never even thought about. And you're going, wow, now that's something that I can see myself doing.